Time now to get a look at the waiver wire presented by Snickers. Rookie mistake. Maybe you just need a Snickers, or maybe you just need a couple of these guys on your fantasy roster to turn things around. Here is our Fantasy Football Today's top 5 players to add. I want to point your attention to the top here. JuJu Smith-Schuster was actually down here last week when I did this. He's clearly shot up. I don't even know if these are in ranking order, but nonetheless, he's at the top for a reason, because you need to have him on your fantasy team out there for the Chiefs. You also got Christian Watson coming back as well. Aaron Rodgers is hanging out on my bench for now. I might throw him in as the season goes on, but let's hand things over to our FFT crew. Guys, a lot of teams still impacted by injuries. It's me, I'm projecting, so tell me who I need to add to my fantasy team this week to get back on track.
I got to tell you, Haley, it's, the waiver wire column's been changing by the minute with all the news that we've gotten today, with Aaron Rodgers getting a new weapon and Davante Adams, a new quarterback for the Steelers with Russell Wilson. So a lot of running back injuries that we're dealing with. The receiver position, though, Dave, is somewhat safe at this point because you're looking at guys that could be impact players right away, specifically JuJu Smith-Schuster, because we didn't see him last week. He was on a bye with the Chiefs. But the last time we saw him against the Saints, over 100 yards receiving, and we know Rashee Rice is out for the remainder of the regular season. You have Demario Douglas with a new quarterback and Maye looking electric and being one of these PPR dynamos that we could start on a weekly basis. Christian Watson benefits without Dontavian Wicks for at least the next few weeks, but we know the potential for him. Same with Romeo Doubs coming off a 2-touchdown game. We'll see if Cooper Kupp returns for the Rams, but lots to like about those receivers there in Los Angeles. Xavier Legette, 2 touchdowns in his last 3 games. So there's a lot of options at the receiving core here, Dave, but JuJu's at the top for a reason, because he could just be the Rashee Rice replacement and a must-start fantasy option as early as Week 7 against the 49ers.
Well, we saw it in Week 5 against New Orleans. He had 8 targets. He caught 7 of them. He went for 130 yards. That included a 50-yard gain. All we're missing is the touchdown, but he's going to continue to play on the Chiefs offense. And really, can you think of better places? Yeah, probably you can, but I can think of a lot worse, like where JuJu was before he was with the Chiefs in New England. I think that he absolutely has a shot to help your fantasy team become a good squad, must-start type of wide receiver, maybe even a borderline number 2 wide receiver. Obviously, the Chiefs can't go and acquire somebody else. There was some talk that they'd go after Davante Adams.
They can get Amari Cooper.
They didn't do it. They could get Amari Cooper. They can get any significant wide receiver, and that would hurt JuJu. But for now, I don't see that happening. I think they're happy with what they have with JuJu, so I'm more than happy to make him a priority off the waiver wire.
2022, when he was with the Chiefs the first time, averaged just shy of 14 PPR points per game, had 6 games over 16 PPR points per game. So Patrick Mahomes likes JuJu, and it seems to be a good marriage for the time being. Christian Watson is coming off a strong game, and there's a couple of things to keep an eye on with the Packers receiver. Jayden Reed left the game briefly with an ankle injury. He is on the injury report, so we'll see what happens there going into a big matchup in Week 7 against the Texans. Romeo Doubs comes back from his suspension, and he scores 2 touchdowns. But you see the numbers for Watson here against the Cardinals. 4 targets, 3 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Dave, we talked about the upside of Watson when he's healthy. Hopefully now, past the hamstring injuries, past the ankle injury that knocked him out for 2 weeks, is he now a must-start receiver rest of season, or is he just a guy that you want to put on your bench to see what develops?
I mean, if we've got 3 receivers to start, then yeah, he would make my top 36. He'd be one of the 3 wide receivers that I'd go with, or at least I'd consider him. How about this, Jamie? He's got 12 targets on the year. 4 of them have been in the end zone. So anybody that's going to get a target, 1 out of every 3 targets is going to be an end zone target. I'm happy to get that guy on my team. This is an offense that's going to put up a lot of points. I think we can finally rest the case on Jordan Love, say that he's a good fantasy quarterback. I'd love to have pieces of this offense. Christian Watson's out there. I'm going to go after him if I can't get JuJu.
All right, I like Douglas better than Watson in PPR. He's got 3 games in his last 4 with at least 9 targets, and with Maye last week, 6 for 92 and a touchdown, taking on Jacksonville this week. Love the setup for Douglas, so take him ahead of Watson for me in PPR. Running backs that we're looking at here, and this is a crazy position because you got James Cook banged up, Aaron Jones banged up, the 49ers running backs, at least with Jordan Mason right now, banged up, Rachaad White banged up, Travis Etienne out for several weeks with a hamstring injury. But you know what? All these replacement options not guaranteed to start in Week 7. And when they are starting, they're facing brutal matchups. Davis if he starts, the Titans. Chandler if he starts, the Lions. Guerendo if he starts, the Chiefs. It's just brutal for these guys if they're going to get the chance to play. But Ray Davis for me is the best, Dave, because what we saw against the Jets could be a sign of things to come. We don't know if Cook will play coming off that toe injury, but 20 carries, 23 total touches, over 150 total yards. And he doesn't have a lot of competition. I know Ty Johnson played on 3rd downs, but I don't think that's going to be something that you have to worry about. Like, for example, in San Francisco, you could see Patrick Taylor eating into Isaac Guerendo's role. So is Davis the number 1 running back for you?
He is. And not only is it going to be somebody like Patrick Taylor eating into Guerendo's role, it could be Deebo Samuel eating into Guerendo's role. And there's so much uncertainty. Here's what we know about Ray Davis. He did great against the Jets. I think the Jets are a pretty good run defense, so that's impressive. And we know that James Cook, even if he does come back off this toe injury, he's probably not going to get shoved into a huge workload right away. So maybe Ray Davis goes in there and he gets 10 touches in that first game back. I don't know how long he can last and be a sustainable fantasy running back, but I'm going to make a beeline for him. I think he's the best guy to bank on because the running back in front of him does have a significant injury, could miss time, and we know what to expect from him. We don't know what to expect from Guerendo or from Tucker. I know Tucker had a great game. There could be 3 running backs in Tampa Bay moving forward. Same thing with Ty Chandler. I'm not sure what we can expect from him. But with Ray Davis, if he gets that big opportunity, we can expect another good game.
When it comes to Guerendo, just keep in mind, he had 10 carries in the game against Seattle after Mason left. Patrick Taylor had 5. Taylor did a little bit more in the passing game. For Guerendo, you see 10 for 99. One of those was a 76-yard run to close the game.
Yes.
And so just don't chase the numbers here. You see no work in the passing game. Jordan Mason did practice on Monday in a non-contact jersey. Remember, the injury was considered day-to-day with his shoulder problem. So while you should be adding Guerendo, you shouldn't be reaching for Guerendo. Just keep that in mind when looking at the 49ers running backs. A quarterback. I didn't think when I started the day that Aaron Rodgers would be the #1 guy in the column, but here we are. After getting Davante Adams via trade, he now has 2 elite wide receivers. Drake Maye is coming off a 25-point game against the Texans, gets the Jaguars this week. Matthew Stafford may have Cooper Kupp back this week. But when it comes to Rodgers, Dave, is he now a must-start quarterback rest of season with Davante Adams on the team?
Not ready to say that he is a must-start, but he's very close to being one at bare minimum because of what he's got in his receiving core, and you know what the track record is with Davante Adams. And also this defense for the Jets, I think they'll get better, but their pass rush, kind of a question mark. Their run defense, especially a question mark after what we saw on Monday night. I think that there are just so many good quarterbacks. I think he doesn't quite qualify as top 12. But that doesn't mean I don't want him on my team. At bare minimum, you add him and you use him as a bye week replacement.
Tough matchup against Pittsburgh in Week 7, then gets New England, Houston, Arizona, Indianapolis for a bye. In Week 12, the schedule gets very favorable for Aaron Rodgers. At tight end, you saw Drake Maye come in. Hunter Henry looked great once again. He's got a great matchup against Jacksonville. You got Taysom Hill in a great spot, taking on hopefully a Denver Broncos team where the Saints don't have a lot of receivers right now. Zach Ertz, Dalton Schultz, they're going to get a lot of options from a target perspective in PPR. Same thing potentially for K. Dot, and keep an eye on Mike Evans dealing with the injury situation there for the Bucs. When it comes to Hunter Henry, Dave, we saw a big game from him in Week 2. We saw a big game from him in Week 6. Are we going to get a big game from him now, taking on a Jaguars team that could not stop Cole Kmet?
No, I'm nervous, and I know that Cole Kmet had a big game. I think he's at minimum a streaming tight end, but I think that the Patriots offense will be able to do much better than they did last week and lean on some other players, including their run game. Makes me a little nervous to go after Hunter Henry.
I like him as a top 12 tight end for this week, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But Drake Maye just makes the Patriots that much better, and hopefully that's what we'll see rest of season. But this matchup against Jacksonville, they are bad. So hopefully the Patriots, Drake Maye, Hunter Henry, Demario Douglas, they can take advantage of it. Make sure you check out our Fantasy Football Today podcast, wherever podcasts are available. We have a breaking news podcast on Davante Adams. We have the Waiver Wire podcast on all the moves that you need, and certainly have you covered the rest of the week with these starts and sits on Thursday and Friday. Have a fun podcast on Wednesday as well. And then don't forget Sunday morning, we have all the questions answered for you to set your lineups. We're always podcasting. That's why we are the best podcast in the business. Check us out, the Fantasy Football Today podcast, wherever podcasts are found.